Are you ready to go beyond the basics of marketing? I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Beyond, where I chat with the world's leading chief marketing officers and business innovators to share ideas that spark change and inspire you to challenge the status quo. Join us as we explore the future of marketing and its endless potential. Today on the show, I've got Sjoerd Handgraaf. He's the CMO at Sharetribe. Sharetribe is building a no-code marketplace software for founders. Sjoerd has over a decade of experience in digital marketing and growth for startups with a focus on democratizing technology. He's also a marketplace expert who advises marketplace startups on early growth strategies. Additionally, he hosts Two-Sided, the marketplace podcast, where he interviews successful marketplace founders, investors, experts to discuss topics related to starting, building, scaling online marketplace businesses. On the show today, we talk about the Two-Sided marketplace, how it's unique, what it means for Sharetribe. We talk about the power of getting your positioning right to get go-to-market clicking. And we talk about his philosophy around give first. That and much more with my guest, Sjoerd Handgraaf. Sjoerd, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we're going to have a lot of fun talking about your company, what you're doing from a marketing standpoint, etc. But there's this thing about your background that I hear you were an aspiring record label mogul. And I'm not sure I've had one of those on the show before. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think that's a grave exaggeration. Now, I used to be, well, still am. I think you can never really say that you're no longer a punk, but I used to be really into punk music and the punk scene when I lived in the Netherlands, where I'm originally from. And yeah, there is this sort of DIY, do-it-yourself philosophy there that, anybody can do what they want to bring out a record, or play guitar, even if they can't. I mean, that's sort of the foundation of the music. And so I had a little record label because we wanted to put out my friend's band. And so I don't think I've ever been like aspiring. And, there's not a lot of money in punk rock. But I was a record label boss for a while. I mean, we put out, I think, I should have looked this up, but I think we put out like one cassette, a CD, for those who still remember, and a DVD. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, you shipped product, so you technically are a record label. Yeah.
True.
That's awesome. Well, you did mention you are Dutch by like birth.
Yeah.
But you're living in Finland today, right? That is where the company is based.
Yeah, correct.
I don't know cultural differences. Are they similar or are very different?
They're quite a bit different, actually. Like the reason I'm there is because I did a student exchange with probably a country that couldn't be more of the same than the Netherlands, which is Denmark, where then on the exchange I met my wife, which is the reason why I'm now moved to Finland. I think Finnish people are quite like, I mean, from a global perspective, probably quite similar, but there are some things about, they don't do small talk around here. So it's, and that's something to, especially in the Netherlands, because I think Dutch people have a reputation of being extremely straightforward and just saying it like it is. So that has been, that has caused some friction or adjustments on my side also, also within the marriage. But culturally, I still think, they're like Northern Western European, still many other things. But yeah, it's like, I think in the States, like, I think like the Midwest comes to mind. I think that there's a lot, and like northern Michigan, like Upper Peninsula is where a lot of Finnish people go. And I think that's sort of that, I think that's where you need to look for the, I was talking to someone earlier who was from Missouri and who described himself as like the show me state. And I think that is really also what Finnish people are like. Which is a great opportunity for a marketer, because they're not so great at marketing themselves. They're like, oh, the product sells itself. So,
right.
So a lot of opportunities for me. Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. I work with some great Dutch colleagues, and you're very accurate about the directness, which I appreciate, to be honest, especially if they're on my team. We can get right down to business, but
yeah.
It's a little stilting when you first experience it. So
yeah. No, it is. I mean, especially like I think there's a lot of trouble always with British people and Dutch people, even though we're like really close, like geographically, they're like just the way of saying things without saying things that the British has sort of elevated to an art. And then and Dutch people are like, why don't you just say it? Yeah, it's fun. It's fun, those things.
I love it. I love it. Well, from your, I guess, Dutch background growing up to
Mm.
school in other countries, what's been your path to where you are today, which you're the CMO at Sharetribe?
Yeah, that's a one. The Dutch, like the punk history, maybe already sort of spoils it a bit. But I wasn't. I never thought I was going to be a CMO. I hadn't even really thought about marketing as a profession. I think, like growing up, my dad has worked in the same steel factory, which sort of like I come from this sort of Bruce Springsteen kind of town where like more than half the population works either directly or indirectly in the steel factory. So marketing was not like something that people discussed at our house. And I was actually trained to be, or like educated to be an English teacher. I have a bachelor from University of Amsterdam in English language and culture and a minor in education. But then when I came to Finland, so after I met my wife at the exchange, I came to Finland and said, okay, let's see what's up. Like we had a nice time. Why not go there? And I realized that the education system here is much further developed. Honestly, like it has very well regarded worldwide. Also, the Finnish education system, and so my degree didn't really give me any opportunity to do that as a profession. But then because of the punk rock thing, like part of that was a lot of like things happening on the internet, like forums, etc., community. So I was part of this online music community, and then combined that a little bit with the sort of entrepreneurial mindset that I had from the record label and some other small projects. I was able to get a job with a startup here, a local or like a domestic country here, which made like a website builder, kind of like what Wix is, but then like 2008, 2009. And they were looking for a community manager because they had just launched sort of their global brand. They were very successful nationally, and they're like, hey, we can do this internationally. So then I got into this thing called startup, which was also new to me. Like I had never heard of what is a startup, like no idea. But for those people who work in like startup and tech startups, you know that like sort of traditional education isn't really that important. Like it's very much sort of merit-based career growth. So I started there, this company called Mugo at the time. It didn't make it internationally. Nationally, still big success. And I started as community manager, then became project manager, then sort of moved slowly more and more towards like business development and marketing side, especially marketing side. And then, Finland is a rather small country. So once you get into that startup scene, you sort of roll, well, not automatically roll, especially if you're a foreigner like myself and you don't have you have to build quite actively on your network. But then you move. It's a special skill set that you get, I think, from working in a startup. You don't assume that things are taken care of. There is this little bit DIY thing, like you need to take responsibility. And so I moved to another startup where I had a little bit more senior marketing role, like sort of purely marketing focused. Then I had a great opportunity at this company called Musician. They were a music learning app, or they still are a music learning app. Probably anybody who's ever played guitar or tried to look up a guitar playing video tutorial on the net has seen a commercial by them, I'd imagine. And from there on, I got an opportunity to work at Sharetribe, who were looking for their first marketing hire. And I was really on board with their sort of mission. So it was around the time, like I started there 2016. And it was just around the time when like, Airbnb was getting really big. You sort of see the impact of these like marketplace type companies. So these two-sided companies that don't own their own inventory. And I saw sort of a huge, it was also, I think, the peak of like what was called the sharing economy at the time, which maybe in retrospectively might be a bit of a misnomer, like a bit more benevolent name than the industry actually was. But yeah, I was really convinced by that business model, and that's what Sharetribe basically provides. Maybe I can talk a little bit about that. Otherwise, this story doesn't make so much sense.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about like what is Sharetribe, how do you guys operate, who do you serve, that kind of thing. That'd be great.
Yeah. So Sharetribe basically makes software for marketplace founders. So if you have an Airbnb for X, Etsy for X idea, then we have a SaaS solution, software as a service solution, for anybody who has just a little bit of internet savviness. I would say non-technical, but like myself, I'm like I said, English lit, English lit major, not a coder. Of course, I've gotten a bit more technical over the years. But anybody who's not technical or doesn't want to spend too much time or money upfront coding can launch a fully comprehensive marketplace. Handling everything from user management, listing management, payment, booking calendar, the whole, like any feature you can imagine for that model comes pretty much out of the box. Of course, there are exceptions, and but we try to help founders, and we help currently, I think, more than 1,200 marketplace projects are powered by Sharetribe. So they were like, their mission was really like, they sort of targeted the thing like, hey, we want to democratize the sharing economy, and I was very, maybe the punk thing again. I was like, hey, that is something I can get behind. Like, that is a very, very cool thing. And it was for me a opportunity to become the lead of a marketing team. So that was a cool, very cool opportunity.
That's awesome. I mean, you guys serving this, like the marketplace creator, if you will, it's pretty unique. Like, I'm curious, in the evolution of the startup, was that always the focus out of the gate?
No, actually, it's a really cool story. A part of this, comes. I wasn't there at the very beginning. I'm not one of the founders, but like I said, one of the earlier employees. But the idea actually was born as part of university research project. So here, there's a very good technical university here. Now it's called Aalto University, but it used to be the Helsinki Institute of Technology. And they had a research project to make campus more sustainable. And part of that was this sort of lending platform, right? Like, as a student, if you've ever lived on a campus, you know that, like, who has a drill? I need a drill. We're throwing a party tonight. Who has a smoke machine? Like, we have like that kind of exchange was sort of happening.
Right.
That was what they wanted to facilitate. And it was quite a success. I think it was quite a popular platform. Like I said, like, it was early. I think that was maybe 2009, 10, 11, around that time. And then the research project ended, and the two founders, Antti and Juho, and they got quite excited by this sort of like being software operator thing. And they're like, hey, we would like to build we would like to turn this into a business. So they first started with trying to sell that platform to other universities and other institutions. But I don't know anybody who's ever worked with organizations like that. It's not the sales cycles are rather long, so it's not like not like a hockey stick startup growth that you want to see. But then throughout, like, moving through that scene and talking to a lot of people, they had met a lot of people with really great ideas about bringing two things together, like sharing economy or marketplace platform ideas, who all ran into this problem of the platform. And so then, light bulb moment, like, hey, actually, we have this platform. Why don't we make it available to others and maybe earn some money off the back of it? So that's how the idea for Sharetribe was born. So it wasn't always the business focus, but quite soon that became the business focus. And we started with a very, like, for the time, very cool advanced app, which was sort of like a WordPress type approach, where you just sign in, you call it ellenhart.sharetribe.com. It's immediately live. You could immediately get users payments running. You just needed to get a PayPal account connected, and it worked. It was very basic, but it was extremely fast, extremely reliable. And over time, we expanded the feature set a bit. The problem with that was that, first of all, like, this business or like our target audience, like startups, 99 out of 100 don't make it. So there's a lot of sort of natural churn, which for a subscription business is not great. And then on the other side, there were a couple of customers who were really great at sort of proving their, hypothesis with our product, had sort of MVP going, even got some traction, even having like some thousands of transactions, who then ran into a need for some feature that we didn't have, like some custom feature. Like, each marketplace has a little bit own special sauce. Like, that's basically sort of the premise of Sharetribe also, that they share like 80% of the same features, but then there's like 10 to 20% like special sauce that they need to build that we will never build, so they can build it on top. So then we were also losing the good customers. So then we built a new product around 2018, which was more like technical. It were like, I don't know, for those people who work with marketers who work with CMSs, around that time there was this rise of like the headless CMS, like contentful.
Right.
Yeah. And so that was quite promising. That like, hey, something that sort of is like the back end as a service, but the thing in which you present it, you have to build yourself. But we don't need to maintain it as a software company. It was quite good. So we built that. It was a success. But then we had the problem that in order to take that product into use, you need to build a client app or whatever, which is really a challenge. So we had a really good name in this being easy to use software. So we had a bit of a friction that we had these two products. It was hard to choose which one was fitting. So then we bet the entire farm on the third product, which we released January 2024, which is sort of the best of both worlds. So it's the marketplace backend as a service with a sort of no code layer on top, which anybody can get into use. And if you reach the point where you want to build new feature set, you just take what you already have from the no-code platform, host it somewhere else, and you can build anything on top. So I hope this wasn't too sales pitchy, but it is sort of like a sort of natural development on how we got there and sort of what we learned from feedback from the founders and see, what our customers are doing. So, and when I say founders, I mean like our customers actually, like the marketplace founders.
Right. No, I think it's super helpful. It's not every day I talk to growth companies like yours that have had the benefit of pivoting the business a few different times, and the learnings that you take and then how you reapply and retrench and go back after the market.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to say it now. It was a pretty, that last product, it took longer than we thought. We had you can look it up on our blog. The CEO's written quite a nice post about how we were basically like flat for 2 years, kind of like juggling these two products and then building the third one. So it wasn't like it was exciting, but it was also not nice at times. But luckily, I think luckily it paid out. Like I think we learned a lot. It's also on the marketing side, like lots of things we learned through that journey.
Right. Well, and we've talked a lot about getting the product right. How did you think about like getting your positioning right, like how you talk about what the product can do, and how does that, as you think about it, and maybe as you've gone through some of these pivots, like how does messaging or positioning help to drive go to market?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that is definitely one of the lessons that I refer that we learned, because like imagine like the situation where we were in, where we have like this highly technical product that you need to be technical to use, and you need to be technical to understand the benefit, and then the other one which is easy to use but has technical limitations, like then also internally suffering from maybe the bias that most tech companies have, that you forget that 99% of the world doesn't even know that a software like yours exists, like a category like yours is just unknown. So then like to have to explain all of that on those couple of seconds that people spend on your website, it's such an incredible challenge, and we are doing it probably much worse than we thought we were. So then when we had this new product where sort of these two stories came together, in our heads at least, like before we launched it, we had a really great sit down with the entire company, or like representative of all the department. We're not a massive company, we're like 25 people in full time, and then an army of freelancers and then remote people. But we had people from product, people from customer support, the coders and marketing people. And we really sat down and was like, okay, what are the things, like why do people choose us? Like what words do they use? So we went through support history. We went through all our reviews online, both good and bad. Like what other terms how do people out there actually understand our product, and what do we think is the benefits? And we sort of lined them up, and we used this great book called Obviously Awesome by April Dunford. It's a book about it's truly like a sort of a guide to how to position yourself in a sort of medium-sized to small business. And we went through this whole, like her whole exercise. We adjusted a little bit to our needs, but it's essentially like map out what are the competitive alternatives. So not competitors, which I think is a mistake that marketers often make, that you just look at like direct competitors, but what are the competitive alternatives of doing what you offer customers to do. And for example, for most marketing software, the competitive alternative is spreadsheet. Like that. That's what people do. Or even worse, like just not doing anything. Like doing nothing is the competitive alternative. Like for example, if you think about like a marketing software, like increase lead quality or whatever, like most people just don't do that. Like they don't need to, like their solution to their problem is just ignore it. So you look at those, then you look at what are your unique benefits compared to those, and then like you try to wrap those in like value. So not features, because a lot of especially tech marketers are like quite fond of listing the features, but like what is the value that it unlocks, right? Like what is the thing that it gives to customers? And then once you have a couple of convincing values, then imagine like who cares about this, like who benefits from this, and that really gives you a really nice sort of recipe for coming up with your positioning. So you can tell, like, make it clear what is the category that you're in, what are your value props, and who cares about them, and try to sort of catch them. So for example, as an example, what that means is that we now, the same way that I introduced Sharetribe, also if you go to our marketing site, we are marketplace software for founders. So we are not marketplace software for enterprises. We are not marketplace software for existing marketplaces, even though we get better and better at that. But that is not, and we don't deny enterprise customers or existing marketplaces. But that is not how we position ourselves. This is not how we prioritize our roadmap right now. Like we're in a bit of a transition period, if I'm honest. I should really stop hitting the mic. Sorry about that, Alan. Let's start again. We are really in a little bit of a transitioning at the moment, like towards more, as our product gets more and more mature, we are able to serve also more and more mature customers. But when we came out with the product, our positioning was crystal clear that we are for people who are starting businesses, like not for people who want to transfer their marketplace business. So, and from there's no clear metric on how you measure your positioning, but we could see on all cylinders that it was hitting really well, like in terms of conversion on the page, in terms of clicking on the ads, in terms of converting in the product. It was very, of course, the fact that it was a great product also helped. No small thanks to the people in product team, but I think it also just made everybody in the company internally also aligned, right? So that whatever gets told in sales or whatever, whenever someone reaches out to support with a question, that they are already able to sort of narrow down, okay, what type of customer is this? What is the story that we're telling them? Are they the ones that care about the extendability, scalability, or the price, or the speed? So it was just I think the first time ever that we were like fully aligned as a company internally on who we are serving and what we're doing. And it was really, I mean, it sounds like it was really great. Like it's really, it's really fantastic, actually.
Yeah, it sounds phenomenal. Just like the to your point, like the galvanizing of the internal alignment. But the other thing I think about when you're talking about the values and who it speaks to, the notion of like if the words and phrases that you're using in your communications or in your sales resonate that much heavier with your target, like they see themselves in your marketing, right? Like they see themselves in your sales messaging. And becomes no one loves to be sold to, but everyone loves to buy.
Yeah.
I think it gives them an opportunity to see something that's worth buying, right from the get-go. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and it can also be quite, like I've imagined, like, I don't know if you do this, but once as your marketing career sort of progresses, you get some insights, and then you sort of start thinking back at previous positions that you had or projects, and like, if I would have known this, or if we would have had, I often think like if we would have had Instagram advertising for one company I worked for, like we would have, been so much more. And I feel that like with positioning also, like I feel like that, but also with some company, I feel like, if we would have done positioning, like, I don't know if we would have liked the outcome of how people talk about us, or what is the thing, why do they buy us, right? That they just buy us because we're the cheapest, not because of the feature or something like that. So I think I can imagine it can also be pretty brutal, like to do an exercise like that.
It could be for sure. Well, I think the last time we talked, you talked about this notion of, or an approach of, give first, ask later. And you talked about that in terms of like how you approach it with marketing and content. And I'd love you to just like tell us a little bit more about what that is, because I was intrigued by the notion of give first.
Yeah, it's again like it's nice to be here and have this conversation and make it sound, like this is all a well orchestrated plan. I think this is something that it's sort of morphed into. I think part of it has been indeed that we've always been a bit of a value driven company who which is honestly like genuinely like to help founders. Like that we were all most people from the early team are also very active in the local startup scene, and so I think that first of all into it. So the concept behind it is quite simple. Is that in our case, customers build the backbone of their business on our software. We're not a complementary software. We're not a CRM for veterinarians or something who already have a business practice. They just need something that helps them go a little bit better. Most of our customers would probably not have been a marketplace founder if it wouldn't be for our business, for our software, because they just simply, like I said, they can't afford a coder or they wouldn't know where to get started. But that comes with the turn as well, because like we need to be, for people to trust their entire business with us, we need to be a reliable partner. And I think that's where this sort of give first, ask later comes in as one part, that we just want to be really, we show, like we give first, we're very sort of straightforward in what we have to offer. um, we like to offer value out of the gate and only make the sale if it's really clear to them. So there's no features that you need to pay for to try it out. You can try out everything before you need to upgrade, for example. But it also comes to the content marketing. So what we do with our content marketing is that we have a sort of the brief for all of our writing that we have done has always been that it should be completely tech agnostic. So marketplace businesses are actually quite special, right? They're a very unique business. You're basically building two businesses at the same time. There are all kinds of concepts that do not occur in SaaS businesses or service businesses or consultancy businesses. And there is surprisingly little written about it. So a lot of founders make the same mistakes over and over again. And we have seen that. We've worked with so many. So what we have done is basically we have just put a sort of a marketplace. Well, we have a thing called the Marketplace Academy. We have a bestseller on Amazon called the Lean Marketplace, and we just sort of collected all of those lessons in there. And we still do that type of things where we just bring out all the advice that you can use. You don't need to sign up. You don't need to leave your email address even. You can use all of that information, all of the knowledge that we have discovered through our 11 plus years of experience without ever touching a Sharetribe product. And when I say ask later, actually, maybe we never really ask. Maybe we just hope that you're like, oh, I've heard about this. Every time I Google for something relevant to marketplace businesses, or every other time I come across this Sharetribe, hopefully that will, put into your mind, oh, maybe they're like the one to check out. Because now actually when I say this, I don't even know, do we ask later? Like, honestly, like we just put value out in the world, and we hope that convinces people to at least give us a try. I think a bit to a detriment, this might also be like I've talked about this with other people, especially from North America or States, where there's a little bit more maybe salesy, or like a little bit more showy approach to sales or to doing things. You're like, oh, why don't you cast your email here, or why don't you like do demos this or something like that, or why don't you hop on don't do cold calling and stuff. And I think it's part culturally, because like I said, actually good that we talked about this Finnish thing, because Finnish people they don't like to like talk or convince people of things that are maybe not entirely the case.
Right.
But I think it's also just because we're a product that you need us or you don't. This is not some intent purchase. So our only job is to convince you that for your need we are the best. And I think that's where this sort of give first, ask later comes from.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like the notion. I always think about it as you're educating, helping people solve their problems. And yes, hopefully they will buy
Hmm.
or you will prompt them to buy.
Yeah.
and it works out because you've kind of brought them along on the journey. So it's an interesting piece.
Yeah, and
What
I also
one?
think like it
Yeah.
becomes more and more important now.
Mhm.
I got an email a couple of weeks ago from this well, not growth marketer would be a sort of I would not do him justice, but he's a venture capital partner at Andreessen Horowitz. He used to be earlier at
Mm.
Growth. It's called Andrew Chen. It's great. Like he used to blog a lot more, but a lot of his old stuff was really good. Like really like a growth guru in that way. And maybe guru is
Right.
like a real growth expert, like someone with real experience at some really high skill companies. And he put out an email saying that like all channels, our marketing channels are dead. Meaning that like all of the channels that exist right now, they are completely saturated. Everybody has discovered the best
Mm.
practices. Like
Mm.
because for a while in marketing, let's say 2008 up onwards, we were in this sort of cycle where every couple of years something new got added, right? Like Facebook,
Right.
Twitter, then Facebook, then there was Foursquare, there was local, there
Hmm.
was
Right.
mobile, there was, it felt like there was a bit of a change, everything. And so there was a lot of times, or when this first, social graph came out from Facebook, that was
Mm.
there was a really mind blowing progressions in sort of like digital advertising, digital marketing. And so I think
Right.
for a while you could get by as a company, and not get by, but you could succeed as a company by just being really good at a channel, being first mover, and just really maxing out, like this famous story from Airbnb, for example, that they did this cross posting to, God, what is it called? Craigslist, for example, or
Mm.
what was it called? Like
Right.
Zynga, you remember, with like Farmfield, that really just
Yeah.
optimized the use of Facebook friend invites. So there were all these like, there was always some sort of new thing on which you could drive your business. I think his point, I don't know if it is, but maybe I'm paraphrasing, but I think his point was, and I agree with that, and I think a lot of marketers also sort of feel this intuitively, like in their gut, that is a bit gone. And actually, in marketing, we are sort of moving more back to basics, and like also in product, that like everybody can do the distribution now equally well. So we're back again at, is your product any good, or is your messaging around your product any good? Because those are the things that are sort of
Right.
unique to our business. And for example, when the give first, ask later, is your brand good? Like, do you actually,
Right.
are you able to live up to that also? Because any company can be nice on the outside, like,
Right.
so I feel that it's a bit of, we've been locked out a little bit. And I think like maybe that's something also to think about as a marketer nowadays. Like, is this like, what is our competitive advantage here? And I'm not sure
Yeah.
if there's a clear answer, to be honest. But
Mm. Well, one other thing I wanted to bring up is you also have a podcast, and it's called Two Sided, the Marketplace Podcast. And we've been talking about marketplaces, and
yeah.
I think caveat that podcast is about kind of lessons learned, etc. Like, what have you learned doing that podcast about marketplace and marketing one?
Yeah, I learned a lot. Like it was part of an exercise just to produce more knowledge for our customers, honestly, because the job of the podcast is to discover what makes marketplace successful. So I learned a ton. Like I learned a ton about, like top things you shouldn't do as a marketplace. Do I have some time to tell one of those, or
Yeah, yeah,
one of the
yeah,
lessons?
yeah,
Yeah,
please.
yeah. So I think the first lesson that I learned, and that we sort of also try to instill in our customers, which is a bit weird considering that we're selling platforms, is that marketplace founders often mistake their product, their platform, for their product. Which I mean to say is that the product of a marketplace is not the platform, the app, the website, what it takes place. The product is actually making the transaction happen between the two sides. So there's this concept in marketplaces called liquidity, which is the likelihood that a seller is able to sell their produce and the buyer is able to find something that they want to buy, or it could be rent, or
Mm.
whatever is the role. And that is the livelihood of your marketplace. That is what you make. That is your product. Like liquidity is your product. And it's much less about, I see a lot of founders could also be a bit nervous to go out there, but like worry a lot about some details. Oh, maybe we need this integration. Maybe we need that. It's like, no, actually, you just need to go out there and bring both sides together and see, do they care enough to give you some premium on top of this, right? Because this is how most marketplaces
Right.
monetize, that like you facilitate the exchange of value, and you take a little bit off the top as your business model. Connected to that is sort of the second lesson, which is that you should make, in the beginning, in most cases, you should make your marketplace as small as you can. Meaning that don't start a worldwide global marketplace for car rental or something like that, because what you need to do, most marketplaces, you have some sort of limitations that demand and supply, they need to be in the same physical location, for example. So to stick with the car rental example, here in Helsinki, for example, if I would start a car rental marketplace, I should probably focus even on a neighborhood of Helsinki where, okay, when it's a peer-to-peer car sharing marketplace, like, are there enough cars in this one neighborhood, and do I get enough rentals? I shouldn't even care about the entire Helsinki, let alone Finland. It should just be about those two things. That's where your marketplace starts. So I think those, if there's any sort of two things that I've learned that I talk to a lot of founders, like mentioned again and again, it's like, these are the two things that I check off at the gate, that like, where are you? What are you doing? Are you doing this, or are you not doing this? Because I think this is the number one mistakes that, number one and number two mistake that marketplace founders make. When it comes to podcasting, I don't know how much I learned about it, besides the fact that it's hard to do. It costs a lot of time. And you can't really tell because it's just a conversation, but to listen, like to hear what's the guest saying, and then like try not to try to not to guide it too much. When it comes to marketing the podcast, I have just benefited from the fact that over the years we have a pretty good mailing list and community around the brand already. So I think I was able to glean it. So I don't want to. I'm not super comfortable taking advice from me on how to grow the podcast, because I think I had a bit of starting capital in terms of brand.
Built-in audience. Almost.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I mean, the marketplace learnings alone are pretty interesting, and marketplaces in themselves are just so unique. So appreciate you sharing.
What's cool about it is that, and I see that a lot, is that I think that once you get into this mode, you start seeing them everywhere, or you start seeing opportunities for them everywhere, right? Like, because there is this sort of divide between demand and supply on so many levels. I think it's it doesn't make always sense, like for unit economical reasons, but there's still so many to be built. I can tell you, like, I talked for the last season, I talked to some 8 investors, like 8 of the world's biggest marketplace investors, or most special, and they're all still fully bought in on the thesis and still like investing all the time in this and seeing good outcomes, although not just investing about it. So still wide open.
Love it. Well, one of the things we like to do on the show is get to know you a little bit better. There's a series of questions I want to ask you that we ask everybody that comes on the show. So my first question is also my favorite. Has there been an experience of your past that defines or makes up who you are today?
Yeah, I think I have to go back to the punk stuff again. Like that, that was just blew my mind. Just that, like, people who couldn't play played, like people who could play music started bands, and just set up shows, and like everything. This whole DIY thing is extremely powerful, and actually has informed a lot of my marketing. All of the marketing experiments almost that I do in the company, that I first tried them out myself. I was like the podcast, for example. I was like, I can do this. And the first one I edited myself. I didn't hire an editor. So I think that is really just this sort of like anybody can do it, is kind of like, I think, an attitude that has really shaped me as a person and also as a professional in that way.
Love it. Well, what advice would you give your younger self if you're starting this journey all over again?
I think maybe the advice I would give myself is to be even more entrepreneurial. I think, like, if my younger self would live now, especially, I think the opportunities to be entrepreneurial, not necessarily saying everybody should be a founder, not everybody can be an entrepreneur, that we can build a business, but to go out and do even more stuff. Because I think the opportunity, anybody can be an amateur podcaster, video maker, marketer. The entry level for most of these things that were previously hidden behind a job, that you have to be in a job in order to do something, I think has just disappeared on almost anything. So I think advice to my younger self would be do even more, like turn the record label into a massive media complex or whatever. Like I think that's what I would give.
Awesome. Well, is there a topic either you're trying to learn more about yourself or you think marketers need to be learning more about?
Yeah, this is going to be. I mean, people are going to tune out in the episode around this time when I say AI, but it is unfortunately like, or not unfortunately, I don't know. I think it's unavoidable. I think we are in the middle of a really interesting period, also within the company, where we're trying to determine like, and I think this might be for several other companies as well, that how much are people searching through AI? Like who, instead
Right.
of going to Google, how many people are actually asking ChatGPT for the more complex answers? And for example, for a software like ours, which is rather complex,
Right.
and the audience that we're in, the little bit technical audience, we can see, because we have this question in our onboarding wizard, we can see a rapid rise in people who indicate that they first heard about us through AI. And I have no reason to expect that this is going away. So I think like one thing to learn, I think, is like how, just imagine, like, I think maybe just generally for marketing AI, I think it's very scary for a lot of marketers. I
Right.
thought a CEO wrote an email last week about like basically telling everybody like, hey, sorry, my henceforth AI is coming for your job. If I'm just, it was not a very considerate email, but I think that's a feeling that a lot of marketers have. And I think as a reaction, many marketers sort of like stay away from it, or like, oh, this can be good.
Right.
And I think we can't afford to slow roll on this one. I think like even just from your career perspective, there's loads of things not to like about it. Like let's be clear. I think
Right.
it's not good at many things, but I think it will probably pay off as a marketer, as a career now, to be an AI maximalist. Just assume that what the tech bros are saying is going to be the future, that it can do these things, that it can then, and then just go with that, just dive in, because it's all, what's so great about it, and this is what something that you can imagine I'm excited about, is that it's quite democratized. Almost everybody can afford a ChatGPT subscription, or one
Right.
of these like AI coder subscriptions. And I think coming, this might be my DIY thing talking, but I've been running all kinds of projects about creating little apps for myself. Is it really true that it can do that? Like,
Right.
test out every time, because they're like, oh, it's going to come for content marketing. Like, well, is it really, like, what? And if so, like,
Right.
what is the thing? Like, try, because I think through that you start to learn also as a marketer, like, where is the unique thing that I can add? Like, where is the unique
Yeah.
value? And I think that is really hard to do if you do not, like, what is the word? Like, immerse
Go
yourself.
deep.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Go deep on it. Yeah.
So, like, that would be
I
my
agree with
advice.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I think there's a huge amount of learning that we need to do. And maybe to bring it back to like your positioning conversation we were having earlier, we've got to position the human, piece, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the only way to do that is, to your point, like we've got to experiment, we got to use, we got to understand how we're different and what the output is, etc.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we
I
got to
mean,
do the
it's
hard work.
really, yeah, I think it's really, because I think it's like, it's both extremely scary, right? And I think if we would have, if job security would be a little bit better arranged globally, I think people would maybe be a lot more embracing of this. I think a lot of this has to do with
Hmm.
like, but what about like, but what if there's not be any more coders? And I think that is just, I can see that around me, that it sort of paralyzes people.
Right.
And I think that in defense of AI, if like, if that thing really can do something where you just don't add value, then we just don't add value. Like, there's no point for us to
Right.
like, it's the same as like how automation used to go in factories earlier. Like, why would a human need to do that? Like, of course, the downside is that we're still going to have to work 40 hours per week, unfortunately. Like, we're not, like, maybe that's the one thing I'd like to change, that like, hey, when when are we seeing these like productivity increases like reverted to a little bit more free time? But generally, like, career wise, yeah, I think that's the approach to take.
Yeah. Well, I got two last questions for you. One is, is there any anything that you're just curious about that's going on in the world. It could be a trend, a subculture,
Yeah.
anything like that.
Yeah, quite connected to this AI. I just really like this already for a while, even pre-AI, when they're like maybe 2-3 years ago, well, maybe longer, when there was this rise of no code. There was this rise also what they call like these indie hackers, like single developers or single somewhat technical people who built these what they call like micro SaaS. So they just build like a sort of portfolio of small bets, like making very specific services, like AI avatar or something, or a particular thing about taxes for digital nomads or whatever. It's not always the most profound thing, but I just really like how they do kind of what I described earlier, that like they take sort of all the opportunities that the web and coding is offering nowadays and just sort of living this independent life. Like they're still working hard, like, don't get me wrong, but I just really like this sort of creativity to the max and sort of disregard boundaries. Are they a marketer or a coder or a product person? Are they, some have a wide range of products that are absolutely unrelated. They just happen to share the same technology, and they figured out, oh, this also works for insurance people or something, like, so
Right.
I really like that. And I think maybe that's where some of the world is going also, like, as you can be more and more of a business with all these assisted things. So I think that's a really interesting, right. I like following those people.
I love it. Oh, last question. What do you feel like is the largest opportunity or threat facing marketers today?
I think I already sort of discussed that, honestly. Like, I think that's like all these AI assisted things. I mean, like, we can really, let's disregard what I said about the free time, etc. But if you just purely think of what can you do in your job, like how productive can you be, and leave out the question of whether or not we should strive for that. But I think just the opportunities to level up your game with this sort of combination of AI and all this automation, like the amount of things that we put out with Sharetribe, we're not even 2 full-time people in the content team. Like, it includes myself and my colleague who doesn't work full time. And I think if you look at what we bring out, you would think we would have a quite, if you compare it like with 5 years ago, you would need at least, like, I don't know, 5-6 people for that. And I think that is the power. Like, I think that's the opportunity and the threat, of course, because as that thing, as that thing progresses, who will, I mean, this is maybe not the nicest thing to end on, but as less people are needed, maybe, then, like, what does that mean? I mean, that could be a threat to marketers. Like, if you're not adapting, where will that leave you? And I think that is maybe the thing we can't really, like I said earlier, I think we can't really afford to wait for. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. It makes sense. Well, it's been hugely thought-provoking conversation, and I've learned a lot, especially around marketplace businesses, which I don't spend a ton of time thinking about every day. But Sjoerd, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. I enjoyed several of your other episodes, so it's an honor to be here. Thanks a lot, Alan.
Hi, it's Alan again. Marketing Beyond is a Deloitte digital podcast. It's created and hosted by me, Alan Hart, and produced by Sam Robertson. We have even more cutting-edge marketing insights headed your way. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with our latest episodes. I love hearing from listeners. Share your thoughts about the episode, the topic covered, or the show by commenting on this video or emailing me at marketingbeyond@deloitte.com. If you're interested in more conversations with industry visionaries, we invite you to explore other Deloitte Digital podcasts at deloittedigital.com/us/podcast. There you'll find the Marketing Beyond webpage with complete show notes and links to what we discussed in the episode today. I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Beyond.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Deloitte. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only and does not imply endorsement or opposition to any specific company, product, or service.